Previously on Video Game Hangover.
There is going to be a classic video game museum where I live, and within walking distance, which is super,
you can
super
walk
cool.
to it?
I can walk to it in about 3 minutes.
That's a little weird.
It's so weird.
Like, do they know you're there?
They don't know I'm here, but I'm hoping that I can contact the founders and hopefully get them on the show.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, this is the lobby, so 40 monitors, each showing a different story. So things like MTV music videos from the 80s, and classic arcade games and video games,
There's a Mega Man cartoon.
commercials. Yeah. Say your thoughts.
I'm just bombarded by video game stuff.
Just a giant sculpture with lots of monitors.
Technically an exploding cartridge.
Oh.
It's kind of hard to see, but yeah.
Gotcha.
Going up and
What's on the other side?
All the systems.
more televisions and yeah, systems in between everything.
Excellent.
Very cool.
This is so amazing. Like, I'm so happy that someone finally put together an archive of the history of this industry.
Absolutely.
Such a long time coming.
It really is. And you know, the US is like the birthplace of video games too, of the industry. And the owners are always saying there's 2 or 3 museums dedicated to random things like carrots. There's 2 carrot
Right.
museums
What?
in the US, but there wasn't a video game museum
makes
out of
no
all
sense.
things. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, they're showing old Genesis ads from my youth. The Streets of Rage 2 ad. Okay, excellent.
cool.
Sold.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Video Game Hangover. This is Paul Sandu in Dallas, Texas.
Wait.
What?
This is the biggest pet peeve I have. We do not live in Dallas, Texas. We live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, but we actually live in Frisco, Texas. So I think this episode, we should actually say that because we're talking about something that came to Frisco.
Okay, what's your name?
Courtney?
Okay, thank you for the correction. It's true, we do live in Frisco, Texas. I simply say Dallas because that's a pretty famous city and people know where it is. Not many people have heard of Frisco, Texas. Anytime I bring it up in casual conversation, people always ask me, where's that?
True.
So rather than explain it 50 times, I just say Dallas.
Gotcha.
There? But yes, this week we are going to be talking specifically about Frisco, Texas, where we live. And that's for a very good reason. As you heard coming in, there was a clip there of Courtney and I visiting the National Videogame Museum, which actually opened up last week. And we were lucky enough to get a sneak peek, at the museum the day before the grand opening, which was just absolutely fantastic.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly thank Nellie Tokle. She basically gave us a tour of the facility before I got a chance to sit down with one of the founders. And we'll hear that in a few moments. But you were there with me. You were recording live as we were touring the museum. What were some of the highlights of the museum, for you? Because we both had a really good time.
Yeah, so I really liked the super giant, enormous Pong.
Oh, yeah.
When you first walked in, there was this huge Pong game and controller, too. So the controller was the size of, like, a steering wheel.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
And it was heavy. So you had to turn it with all your...
You had to lead that thing. Yeah, you had to give it some
was really
lead.
hard. So I wish we had more time to play that. And I also like the 80s arcade because they gave me free tokens and I got to I got to play Miss Pac-Man the entire time. And then the next day I was sore.
From playing Pong?
No, Miss Pac-Man.
From playing Miss Pac-Man. This is the first recorded injury from Miss Pac-Man.
Not injury, just extreme tricep usage.
Extreme tricep usage for Miss Pac-Man. Fantastic. I think some of the highlights for me, and you folks are going to get a chance to hear some of this actually, because while we were recording our tour, what I'm going to do is insert some of these clips from our tour, kind of spliced in with the interview that I had with one of the founders, Joe Santulli. I got a chance to sit down with him, and it was a really good interview. But I think the number one highlight for me was the Sound and Games exhibit. On Video Game Hangover, huge fans of video game music. And I was surprised that the National Videogame Museum had an exhibit that was focused on the music of video games. Because to me, I always felt like, it was almost like an outlier that, we're so into video game music here on the show. It was such a wonderful surprise.
Why didn't you think they would celebrate it?
I've always felt like gaming music was a niche within the gaming culture, almost. Like, we take it for granted. And it was just something that was like, oh, damn, lots of people are really into it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of eye-opening.
Especially the nostalgic music.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was pretty cool.
So yeah, you folks will get a chance to listen to that in a couple of minutes. Because like I said, I did splice in some live clips of our tour with the interview that you're about to hear. Now, there are 3 founders for the National Videogame Museum. There's John Hardy, Sean Kelly, and Joe Santulli. And I had a chance to sit down with Joe and just talk to him, kind of pick his brain on some of the history of the museums, some of the highlights for him personally, and get to know him as a person as well. And it was really good. Big thank you to Nelly Tokle again for, giving us the tour. And we'll be back, Courtney and I, after this interview here, just to give some closing thoughts. So enjoy. It's a good one. Okay, well, some introductions are going to be in order here. I just wanted to kind of, have you introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about, your personal story and your history with video games.
Okay, my name is Joe Santulli. I'm a co-founder of this National Videogame Museum. I've been a gamer since Pong, and I've been a collector since the first things you could collect, like video game cartridges. I probably came more from the collecting side of things than my partners. Borderline hoarding, you might call it. Oh yeah, I had been collecting baseball cards and comic books and coins and stamps and all sorts of things, and it was pretty clear that was something that I was supposed to do when I was very young. And video games came along, and I was already fascinated with television, so now I had both. I had something I could collect and something I could play, and I could sit in front of a TV with all of those things. So video game collecting became very much part of my life in the early going, to the point where things like the crash that we talk about, which was a terrible industry event, and,
right.
Not a good thing for most people, was pretty good time for me. I remember that was the first time you'd be able to hop in the car and drive, trying to find all the KB toys that were closing out Atari 2600 and Intellivision games, and my collection did really, really well at that point.
I've never thought about it that way, but someone did benefit from that disaster in the industry.
Yeah, I didn't. Who knew? I didn't really know what was going on at the time. It seemed to me that it was just a changing of the guard. It looked like computers were going to be the next thing, and all these game cartridges that I had enjoyed, and there were lots more of them out there that I didn't have. That this is the perfect time to sort of stock up on them. So never got out of the stock up mode. And that's why we have 100,000 or so pieces that need to be put in the museum. So we're pretty happy to open this place up and get my collection, which is just a portion of what's here with the other 2 guys, in a permanent home.
We go back to the menu. So the menu shows all the consoles that were ever invented.
I love the giant Super Nintendo controllers. That is fantastic.
You can scroll through whatever you want to learn about.
And it will teach you.
Well, of course, we want to learn about the Sega Saturn.
Some more history of it all, yeah.
The brief history of the Saturn.
So the image comes up, the price, year it debuted, the games people played, just some background info, how much of it was actually sold.
Yeah, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So showing you, like an interactive way to explore the history.
No, it's great because a lot of the new generation of gamers, anything like pre-2000 doesn't exist, and it makes me sad because this is the stuff I grew up playing.
Yeah, I'm a late '80s kid, so I think from here on out is what I remember playing. And
of course, they have Zelda and the Super Nintendo there because what else would you have?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That was something I did want to ask you, though. Can I get some history of the museum itself? Because you were a mobile museum in the past, right? This is your first permanent home. And, a lot of the collection items, is this you and your co-founder's personal collection? Or, where do you get the pieces?
Yes. So, ultimately it is. It's our personal collection. So, from, those days of collecting for myself to joining up with these guys in the mid-90s, essentially like-minded individuals who were also collecting and were interested in filling in their lists of things. So we all had our specialties at the time. John's a big Atari guy. Sean was collecting Intellivision games. There wasn't an internet. We were writing letters.
This is true. People forget that.
Yeah, it was all letters. I was running a fanzine called Digital Press, and they were subscribers, and we would write letters to each other, and this is how we sort of discovered each other. And then by 1999, we felt we had enough of a following to be able to do our own little show. So we did a show called Classic Gaming Expo in Las Vegas, where for the first time we each brought parts of our collection and we called it a museum. So that's sort of where it all started, that show. And Classic Gaming Expo ran for a number of years, and during that time we were tapped by the industry to bring some sort of a retro exhibit to pay homage to the history of video games. And E3 was the first one to ask us to do that. It was a 10-year anniversary of E3. They said, can you guys come and do something to kind of celebrate the history? So we began doing all of those events, and all this time still collecting for our own personal collections, but now also having a traveling museum and being part of the industry. People from the industry would say, well, since you guys are going to have a museum someday, or you at least have a place to show this stuff off, let me give you this development system that I programmed, all my games on back then. So, that allowed us to get our hands on a lot of one-of-a-kind stuff and pre-production things and development materials, and which to us, that's the biggest thrill in collecting. If anyone can collect video game cartridges, and now that now with eBay, but there was no eBay when I was collecting either in the beginning. But you could, if you had enough money, do exactly what we've done up to that point. But now, having been involved in this industry on such a tight level for so many years, we've acquired a lot of things that you can't get online. They won't be on eBay. They are one of a kind. They are the personal ownings of individuals that were part of the industry. So to us, it's really kind of what makes the museum unique, in that we're adding a lot of things that we would have never seen before.
So what would be your most, maybe a roundabout way of saying it, is your favorite personalized piece that you can't get anywhere, that you got from like a developer in the industry? Something that means a lot to you.
Well, a lot. There's so many of them that
I'm
do.
Sure.
I mean, every time somebody hands us something like that, it's a gift. It's a tremendous thing to have and to add to an archive like ours. I mean, a recent one was a guy named Steve Ettinger had given us a Game Boy. I think it was a Game Boy Pocket. That was a Barbie edition Game Boy Pocket. So it's this sparkly pink Game Boy, and it was meant to be packaged with one of the Barbie games. And they pitched it to Nintendo at the time when he was with Mattel to package this together as a bundle, as a special edition.
Oh, so this is like a prototype then?
It's a prototype.
Oh, okay.
So it's the only one, and it looks really cool, and it has its own little silver beaded bag that you put it in. And so they had basically had the whole product the way that they wanted it, but I guess Nintendo balked at it at the time, but the developer hung on to it. And after we met him a couple of years ago, he turned it over and said this would probably be pretty cool, and it's right here. So we have this really cool Game Boy collection, and then we have his special Game Boy sitting in the middle of it, which is great.
Excellent. So, I mean, as you were giving us a tour of the facilities, one thing I did notice is just how interactive a lot of the exhibits are. Mm-hmm. And personally, I think that's extremely important. This is the kind of an industry where player interaction is vital to it just existing. But one thing I was curious, though, what kind of maintenance is involved in kind of, either fixing, some of these outdated consoles or keeping them in working condition? Because surely things break. Some of this stuff is really old.
Yeah, these things weren't meant to last for 30 years.
Right.
And now you're subjecting them to a family of 4 times 100 in one day.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the risk you run when you're doing an interactive exhibit. Is the risk worth the reward? I don't know, but we're going to have to find out. We absolutely have to find out. So, if we find that people are here beating up the systems on a regular basis to the point where we can't keep up with the maintenance or replacement, then we start locking things down. Don't want it to have to come to that. And so we've started this as a very open-ended, touch everything that you can see, that you can touch. It's cool. Just be gentle as you can with it, and hopefully we can preserve it. The other thing that's probably important to know, a lot of people worry about what we've done, and it seems like maybe a rookie mistake to set up a museum this way. But we've been doing these interactive museums for quite some time with the public, and for the most part, people are pretty respectful of things. Sure. But probably more important to understand is that we have a lot of the things that are out. So if we're afraid it's going to break, we've already ensured that you can't touch it.
Oh, okay.
So if you see, you're like, oh my gosh, well, what if I break the Super Nintendo controller? Well, we can either fix it for sure, or we have a lot of them as backups, to take it. And part of that comes from the fact that Sean and I both operate a retail video game store.
Oh, okay.
I have one in New Jersey. Sean has one in Chicago. We're vintage stores. We're constantly taking in those things, so we can have those stores ship us as we need.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So we have I don't want to say an endless supply, because there isn't an endless supply, but we definitely have a place that we can go to if we get in trouble with that stuff. And then, like I said, if it continues to be an issue, we can start locking things down. I really hope it never comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any given week, they can swap all of these consoles out to make everything PS2. And let's run, Sonic or something, a Sonic week, Pac-Man week, whatever.
Cool.
So it's a flexible type of exhibit display.
Excellent.
All the artwork has been painted between 7 local artists.
Beautiful.
This, for example, was hand painted completely.
Wow.
She didn't use any decals, stickers, projectors some artists use for their paintings. All sketched out and hand painted. So
Very nice.
yeah.
They have Robo from Chrono Trigger on their mural.
Say that again.
They have Robo from Chrono Trigger on their mural. Ah, beautiful. This is fantastic.
It's great. And the museum's laid out like in a figure 8, so really you can either go that way, this way, whatever.
Board games too.
Board games that were inspired by video games, really, arcade games.
Oh, excellent.
And this is an example of one of the Flex exhibits to where this could be something totally different in 6 to 12 months.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Mm-hmm. They have, this is 10,000 square feet of space. They have enough items to fill 50,000 square feet.
Right, yeah, right about that. So, lots of rotations.
Lots of rotations that'll pop up here, within a few months or so.
So the mural is just a giant wall of video game characters like Pac-Man,
Robo, Mega Man, Crash Bandicoot, Sonic, Ryu from Street Fighter, the Doom Imp, of course.
Pikachu.
Yeah, you've got to have the Doom Imp.
And what's the Doom Imp? I see it, but what is it? What is it?
He's just one of the dumb monsters.
Oh,
from
Doom.
Yeah,
Okay.
from Doom.
Kirby, Link, Sims, Diamond.
I really like this head-to-head station.
Claptrap.
Yes, of course.
And
I'll give you a call right back.
Mies, Lara Croft.
I like this head-to-head area, though, because people can just sit down, play, like, 2-player games and whatnot. So that's kind of awesome. They got Double Dragon set up on the Genesis there, or on the Sega, classic Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo, things like that.
Have there been any kind of specific hurdles that you faced when it comes to like restoring some of these older consoles? Finding parts that no longer exist. Surely that must be an issue at times.
It does, and when that happens, those are the systems you stop making. Yeah, it does. Or there are game consoles out there that don't have replaceable parts, or you have to cannibalize another one in order to make it happen. So we want to make sure that we've always got at least one working console of every type for whatever reason. Maybe we're doing an event, or it's the 25th anniversary of the 3DO system. We better have a 3DO that we can that we can show. Yeah. So we're not going to have one out for play if it's the last one that works that we know of.
Fair enough. So kind of switching gears, more to the software side of things. Then one thing one of my co-hosts was interested in, what do you think publishers and rights holders can do to help kind of restore access to some of these older games? If the hardware is unavailable for you to play like a physical copy of a game, is there anything that publishers can do to help us, archive some of this older stuff?
Well, the problem with that is that you risk giving your intellectual property to the public to freely distribute. Which is happening anyway. What game system isn't emulated with every single game available on a zip file somewhere or through a torrent? So whether they like it or not, it's going to happen. I don't necessarily know if I agree that a game company should say, go ahead and take it all, because we want to make sure that it's preserved forever. I think they know that it's out. Most of their stuff is out there already. I'm a little bit more concerned about when it comes to restoration and preservation is what happens to all of these download-only type games that we see now.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, that concerns me a lot because we, as our group here, doesn't really have a handle on that right now. We're aware that there are groups out there that are sort of leading the charge to make sure that digital data is archived, but I think every day that goes by, there might be a game that is lost forever.
That's something that concerns me, especially with the way modern games are always connected.
Yeah.
Or they require an internet connection, or like MMOs, for example. How do you recreate those games once they've been shut down?
Final Fantasy XI ended today, right? Or yesterday.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Because, see, I'm heavily into 14.
That's the end of it. It's done.
And it's gone forever.
Gone forever.
And how many thousands and thousands of hours have people, put into that?
Yeah, I mean, that there's always a champion of these games.
Yeah.
So Phantasy Star Online, somebody
Yeah.
developed a way to be able to continue to play that by hacking your hardware a little bit, and I think that will continue to go on, and we've got to really encourage guys like that to keep it up.
So you think it's up to the individual then, and not really the publishers or the rights holders to help out?
Would I like to see the publishers do it? Absolutely,
Yeah.
but they have to make money too, and
I get that.
I don't know how you make money. There's a reason why Final Fantasy XI isn't being run anymore, because if there was money in it, they would keep going.
Sure.
But, I just think for now it's going to be up to individuals to keep it going. I think there always will be.
Yeah.
There always will be somebody that's passionate enough about the game to try to figure out a way to keep it alive, at least until such a time when the world changes. Maybe the publishing rules change, maybe technology changes to a point where publishers don't care anymore. Go ahead and do it. We'll help you. We'll give you the tools that you need. We're not there yet.
No.
But, let's just hope that we do get there.
Right. But, I mean, to your point that you said earlier, though, like, a lot of this stuff is already out there. So do you find that some publishers, it's kind of like an unspoken agreement, they're just, okay, it's out there, we can't really change it. I wonder if that could possibly happen with some of these, more online-focused games as well.
Yeah, well, the only way you find out is if you try to break the rules a little bit and see if you get a cease and desist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't encourage it, but that's probably how you find out. I mean, all those ROMs floating around forever, there's no way they can be stopped at this point.
That
Everyone's
box is
got
open,
them. Yep.
For sure. Beyond some specific developers giving you, like rare items, how else have developers and publishers helped you, get this museum going and just kind of helped you build, the collection or supported you in various ways?
I can honestly say what we've gotten from the industry is more of an attaboy at this point.
Oh, really?
And that's okay. We haven't pushed it.
Okay.
We kind of felt that it was on us to prove ourselves before going to the industry to ask for help or ask for things. And this museum, this version of the museum, which we call 1.0, is built based on our own resources. It's our own things. It's our agreement with the city to make it happen. We didn't need $1 from the industry to make this all happen.
Really? Okay.
Here we are. We now have an industries museum. If we want a 2.0, which we were already looking forward to, more space and the ultimate library that we, and really being able to get all of our things out into a public spot, we will be tapping the shoulder of the industry and saying, look at what we've done. Now, come on, let's do it up big, and we'll see what happens. The doors still haven't opened. They open tomorrow.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see what the industry response is, and if we can make that happen with their cooperation.
So we're walking around the museum and we see Parappa the Rapper.
Of course.
Oh, you can
The
play
music
it.
games.
You can play the music games.
DJ would love this.
Oh, yes. Let's do this. Let's do the practice.
Do we really want to do
What's it doing? Yes, we have to, because if I don't hear it now, I'm just going to die. But I don't hear it.
Oh, you have to use the headphones.
Oh, I don't want to do the practice. It's not a touch screen. I keep pressing it like it's a touch screen. Where's the one that we do? This is like stage 1?
Yeah, stage select.
It's not a touch screen. That's what I kept doing too. I kept touching it. So X.
There you go. You can do the
The famous one. It's all in the mind. If you're gonna test me, I'm sure you'll find the things that we are sure to be jump. But nevertheless, you're gonna listen for teaching. Now kick, punch. I don't know, but everybody knows it. Because it was on the PlayStation demo disc.
Right.
The PlayStation 1 demo disc.
Every exhibit
Like this
is
hall.
a story.
Mm-hmm.
We want everyone to walk away not just seeing a whole bunch of items that are museum items. We
Right.
want everyone to walk away with, why was that important?
Yeah.
Why was sound important? Why was online gaming important? How did it, and then some history. Like this, the sound thing, which there's a couple different things going on here, but there's an application where it's just a jukebox, but the jukebox plays songs that are somehow relevant to, so those theme songs became very popular for a reason. It tells you how they might have been composed. There's also an application on there that lets you hear, for example, we're all familiar with Sonic 2's theme song.
Sure.
Well, we had an artist take those theme songs on certain game systems and translate them into other systems. So while you're listening to Sonic 2, you press the Nintendo button.
Oh, and
it
process
plays what
the
it'll
chipset?
sound like. Yeah, what it sounds like.
Oh.
So I can set. I can put it.
See, this is something I really appreciate because video game music is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And just seeing you folks celebrate that like this is just fantastic.
So this is the jukebox, but this is the Generations thing that we're talking about. So let's stick with Sonic. And it'll take a second to load because it's actually loading all those game systems in at the same time.
Oh,
so
excellent.
You know that version of it, right?
Yep.
But
Here we go.
NES version. Very cool. Atari version.
Go ahead, you can do the last
Oh,
one.
sure.
And of course,
Super
if Sonic
Nintendo
ever went onto
version.
the Super Nintendo, this is how it would sound.
Sounds good.
It sounds better. The Super Nintendo had a better processing chip for the sound.
Do you want to do Chrono Trigger? He loves Chrono Trigger.
My favorite game ever.
I know you saw that.
I saw it, and Street Fighter 2 would be fantastic as well. What would Chrono Trigger sound like
On NES?
on the NES? Exactly like that. And if Square actually made Genesis games?
Is Atari actually better?
Oh, no.
Atari has very little music capabilities.
Okay.
Yep.
Hit the Atari.
And the Atari version. Still recognizable.
Yep, that's not that bad. That's awesome.
Fantastic. I love that. That is
That's
my
really
favorite
good.
thing I've ever seen.
Good. Yeah, we were happy with that.
Very good.
I think, early indication, there's a lot of excitement around this. There's so much, when it comes to video games and video game culture, I can't recall a whole lot of, places that archive. And I know, like, the Smithsonian had some exhibit about the arts of video games a couple of years ago, but it is starting to happen. I have to say, I really admire how you just took it upon your shoulders to say, I'm just going to do this. And I think that just based on the early returns that I've seen, online and on Facebook and whatnot, people are going to support the hell out of this place, and I think that's fantastic.
Good. I hope so.
Yeah, so do I.
We've spent a lot of years and time and money of our own to make it happen. So, and we've never asked for anything in return, and really, we still don't. All we really want is somebody bigger than us to help us make it what it should be. This is an awesome museum, but there's a lot more sitting in our storage that we want to get out there.
How often do you plan? Like, you could fill basically 5 or 6 museums of this size with your collection.
Yeah, for sure.
So how often do you plan on rotating things out then?
As long as there's any energy in our bodies to do so.
Okay.
So we'll have staff here. Hopefully we'll be able to get some people where we can get them trained about the rotation and where things are and what sort of things are good replacements to other things. But we have. I want to say we probably have 500 square feet of storage space within the building here. Mm-hmm. We still have 3 storage units in Frisco, in this area. And that doesn't include the 12,000 game library that we have that's still sitting in New Jersey. Those things should all be in one place, for all times. But yeah, we'll do our best. Sean and I, like I said, we both run game stores, and so we understand the importance of rotation of product. It's going to be even more important here. We want people to come back in 3 months and have a different experience. Yeah. I think you could come back here every 3 months and enjoy exactly what's here just as much in 3 months because you've got an arcade and game systems.
I wouldn't argue that.
There's a whole lot of things to do, right? But I think it would be cooler if in 3 months you came back and the 10 game systems on the head-to-head hall were different and the computers were running different games over different computers and things that you see in the Easter eggs exhibit are different things, and right. So I think it's kind of important. It's on us to continuously rotate that out.
It's not like you have a dearth of content anyway. You've got a lot to.
We do have a lot.
Putting their initials on things as they're developing games,
Right.
and just hidden clues like that. They have that here throughout the museum, so things that looked weird and like this doesn't belong in this scene, like that spaceship doesn't look right or whatever. There's a bunch of them, and then whenever you find something, you can make a username, just like 3 letters, initials, whatever. Punch in what you find. It's like a multiple choice setup too, and it goes real quickly. So if you don't know the answer off the top of your head, it thinks that you don't really know the answer.
Right.
So it'll time you out for 2 minutes. You got to come back and whatever.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
once you
very
answer
cool.
9 of them, it forms like puzzle pieces, and then it'll show you an image. So.
Excellent.
So there's an Easter egg video game within the video game museum.
itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to look for these little things
Yeah,
and then
they're so
put them into the
obscure.
arcade machine.
So I'm a Frisco, Texas resident. I moved to Frisco a couple of years ago. But why did you move here? Because I know you've had some support from the city. Gearbox Software has also supported you as well, like
Yep.
to get you planted here. I mean, what was like some of the background on that? You were looking for a place, and Frisco's just like, "Hey, come here." Or...
Yeah, well, no, yeah, not exactly, but sort of. But you've got all the pieces right for sure. You got all the players. So we did a Kickstarter in 2011 because we knew we needed to build a permanent museum.
Right.
So we said, let's get $30,000, which gives us all of the funds we need to properly move this stuff around and be able to do more exhibits in the industry for the next couple of years.
Okay.
We make our Kickstarter goal. We start doing exhibits everywhere, and one of the exhibits we did in 2012 was one we would have never gone to without that money, and it was DICE 2012.
Okay.
Which is a upper level executives type of a thing
Yeah.
that goes on in Las Vegas every year. At that show, we met Randy Pitchford, who is the CEO of Gearbox, and Randy was sitting in our exhibit. Actually, we had one of our 80s living rooms at the exhibit, and the media people were taking their media people into that living room. So instead of sitting on this crappy leather couch, they were sitting in this cool 80s living room.
This is
And Randy
legit
Pitchford's
now.
their guy. So after his interview, I observed him. I didn't really even know who he was at the time, but he was looking around, and I remember him saying something like, "What is this place?" He goes, "Is it a museum you're trying to build?" He goes, "If you want to build a museum, I want to build a museum. So we should be talking."
That fast.
Just like that.
Boom. Okay.
So, and as we learned about him, we'd heard things like that before, because by 2012, we had already been to a few of these events and had been shopping and trying to find a good spot. And so we'd already heard this sort of a thing. But he was for real. He invited us out to his office when at the time was in Plano.
Right.
And his office has all the game systems that he had ever played mounted along the wall. And the guy is clearly into retro and enjoying all of his history and the game systems that he played growing up. So we knew we had the right guy, and it just took a little bit of time, but Randy was moving Gearbox to Frisco.
Right.
He already had a foot in the door with the politics here and businesses, and had a good lay of the land. Originally, the plan with Gearbox was going to be, when they moved their office from Plano to Frisco, they would build this Nerdvana. And Nerdvana would have the offices, it would have a comic book store, it would have a restaurant that's themed around video games, and it would have this museum.
Okay.
Well, that was the plan for a little while, but it's expensive to have space in Frisco, and
Yes.
a museum doesn't make the sort of money that a retail store or restaurant makes, so it wasn't practical to any of us to be part of the Nerdvana project. But what he did do is he scoped around the nearby area to find a place that might be suitable for us, and lo and behold, the Discovery Center has 16,000 square feet of essentially unused space.
Yeah, and Gearbox's headquarters is literally 2 minutes down the road.
They have since moved, right? So they have since completed their move, and Nerdvana is still a thing.
Yeah.
But
now you have
their
your
offices
space.
are there, right? And then we're just a block away from them in the Discovery Center, which is a city-run building, so it's more affordable. So his influences allowed us to get audience with the city of Frisco. So having met the people here, they loved our product. They liked the idea. They thought that this would be a good move for the cultural, phenomenon that Frisco is becoming.
Yeah, it is trying to develop that, and I thought it was just fantastic that this little area, like right in the heart of Frisco, is this video game culture that is just becoming like more prevalent.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. So I mean, it's a jackpot. And
Yep.
I'm happy to hear that you found someone like in the industry who was able to open those doors and cut some of that red tape for you. That's great.
That's the office of Randy Pitchford, CEO of Gearbox.
Right.
And this needs some signage, but it doesn't look like we're going to get the signage before we launch. So this is what you get, the mind of a developer.
That's quite the rig he has set up there.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the reason we wanted some signage in here. Like, why does a game developer need that?
Yeah.
Why does he need that?
Right.
Why did he win that award? Who is he meeting with today? Why is he inspired by these things?
Right.
You know, so this will be a little bit more of a, how do I get involved in the game developer business?
Wonderful.
Or if I am getting involved, what are some things I should think about? This would at least present you with that.
Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic. Because he's been kind of like instrumental in helping get this place open here in Frisco, right?
Absolutely. He got us into Frisco.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, so and it makes me think now, I just said the industry just gave us an attaboy, but Randy is different, and Randy actually acted more out of his own interest than the interest of Gearbox. Because he's the CEO there, he has influence over programmers and people that might help us, and we've talked to them about maybe running, we have a classroom here, and we've talked about maybe they'll do, they can do speeches on development or do workshops with kids about, game design, which would be fantastic. But I think the whole venture for Randy has been more of a personal venture, just like that day that he was sitting in the exhibit saying, this is what I want to do something like this.
And, you mentioned the classroom. I want to ask you about that next, actually. You plan on holding workshops for both adults and children to help introduce them to game development, or what's some of the ideas you have kicking around in your head, or is that kind of nebulous at this point?
It's a little nebulous, but the reason why there's a classroom is because that's exactly what we want. We know we want to do something along those lines. Exactly what it will be, who runs that program, I don't know. We're not really experts in that area, but when the doors open and we start bringing in the personnel here that we need to run a museum proper, one of those people would be an education expert, and that person would design a plan for us where what we believe would be things like, for kids, simple. It's going to sound silly, but I think if every kid that knows how to use a soldering iron is a tremendous asset in this world. Certainly an asset in our world. We could use people that use soldering that know that every day. So those sort of skill sets, being good with electronics, being good with computers, building computers, understanding how to take apart game systems, what makes a motherboard in a game system work. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that we want to be able to teach young people. And, and older people as well. But I think I kind of look at older people things selfishly in that if I were going to use that room for older people, I would have Friday night at the movies, and I would run The Wizard, maybe the Riff Tracks version of The Wizard, and then we'd all watch that.
Play the regular version. It's a classic. Still holds up.
No.
Red Savage killed it.
Okay. But after the movie, then we would, you would go over to the arcade. So when I was growing up, that's what we did on Friday nights. You would go to watch the movie, and you'd go out with your friends and hang out at the arcade. And we have the environment to do it. So that's
a brilliant idea.
Classroom spot.
You get from all the different generations, you can kind of hit all those nostalgia notes. I have to say, I love the idea of introducing, the upcoming generation to just things like that. Getting into electronics, learning how to code, because I'm a developer myself. So and I had to teach myself in my 30s because I didn't teach myself when I was a teenager. I abandoned it and went down a different road. So if you introduce children to that, fantastic. Especially in an environment that has to do with video games. Right. It's a heck of a gateway drug, so to speak.
Right. It gives them the tools that they need to be part of this area, right?
Yeah, this is the 80s room.
Oh yeah, the 80s room.
Bedroom.
See, this would basically be my bedroom, except replace all the Cowboys stuff with Edmonton Oilers stuff, and boom.
Nice. It's basically kind of like Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Zach's room.
Like that, yeah.
Oh, Contact is on. Okay, so I'm looking at a room here with a twin bed, some All-Star Converse under the bed, beanbag, tiny TV.
Remember, they got the classic CRT and the NES hooked up here.
Say that again, please.
They've got the classic CRT and an NES hooked up here, so it's definitely legit.
Some Ferris Bueller's Day Off posters. A little gizmo, is that what he is? A gremlin?
Yep.
I had that alarm clock my entire life. That's hilarious.
It's your alarm clock.
That is my alarm
from
clock.
Your bedroom.
Very cool. Fantastic. Operation E.T.
Well, I mean, just a real simple question. What's your favorite console game and why?
Is that 3 things? 2 things? Okay.
Sure. Many things. Break it up however you want.
I'll say my favorite console is the Atari 2600 because it was my first, and I still play it. I still go back to play Atari 2600 games. They're so simple. You never have to remember what the buttons do in a game or how to play the game. You pick it up, you play it. And you can play it for a minute, and you can play it for 20 minutes.
True.
As much time as you've got. It's great. And of course, the thing that I remember the most about the Atari 2600 is that's where you experienced all these games for the first time. Nowadays, to me, you play a game, it either is a direct sequel or it reminds you of something else. Like almost everything you play, like wasn't that really kind of just Diablo with 3D graphics?
Sure, yeah.
Wasn't that just, so with Atari 2600, every game that came out for a while there was a brand new experience. The first time I played Dig Dug, there was nothing like it. The first time I played Joust, there was nothing like it.
Joust is pretty awesome.
The first time I played Moon Patrol, there was nothing like it. These were games that you're like, your head would explode every time. Assuming you didn't grow up in the arcade, but still as a home game console, those were the first times that you got to experience those in your home. So that system is very near and dear to my heart. My favorite game used to be Adventure on the Atari 2600 because it's a mind-blowing idea that in a thing that is programmed in 4K, that this guy built an entire world that consists of 3 dragons, a bat that steals, and the dragons guard specific things. The bat steals whatever's on the screen and replaces it with something else. There's multiple different screens within the game in an era where most of the time everything was on one screen.
Right.
Every element of the game was before you. And there were things going on that you couldn't see on the screen. There were dragons guarding things that were off screen. The bat was flying around somewhere off screen. I loved it. And I loved the fact that game had a random element to it. So the first 2 games were pre-programmed. They always went the same way. But game 3, when you hit reset, everything was in a random spot. Definitely. Every single time. The ultimate replayability. If you enjoy the game, it's random.
Right.
Is the ultimate.
When you say 4K, though, let's be specific. You're talking 4 kilobytes of memory.
4 KB of ROM, right?
Right.
All of the code was crushed
The 4K
into
means something different
4,000.
now. Right.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, they had to really crush their code down. And another thing about that game, it's pretty popular for its Easter eggs. So Warren Robinette, who was the game's designer, was one of the first people to program his name into the game. So had you done a very complex sequence of things, you would walk into a room that says designed by Warren Robinette, which is just amazing. And it was at a time when Atari was just not allowing their game designers any sort of credit. So a lot of things I like about that game. It was my favorite for a long time. And the only thing that took over, that finally changed for me, was when Skyrim came out.
Oh, well, I mean, I have, yeah.
I mean, talk about night and day in technology, but almost the same exact reasons why I liked Adventure. I like Skyrim. I like the fact that it's a big game and there's way more going on than you actually see, and just super involving. And I, if I had to count up all of the hours that I spent, I'm sure I spent
don't
way more on Skyrim.
Tears will be shed when you look at the hour counter in Skyrim.
Yeah.
I want to see the evolution of the controllers.
Exactly, absolutely. And things like the Mind Link that's here is one of their rare artifacts that they have to
Yeah, I heard
display.
about that. There's only, 2 in the world?
I think so, yeah.
That's pretty rare.
And again, going back to the virtual reality stuff where they try their hand at it, and I think they were saying it reads like, it kind of measures like when your eyebrows are moving up and down, your eyes are squinting. That's what it kind of measured and would like kind of show you movement based off your facial reactions.
I bet it worked so well.
I'm sure. So well that it was popular on the market.
The whole 2 that were made. So how much did you wear out your power pad? Did you have a power pad?
We did have a power pad. It's probably still functional right now, but I don't know where it is. But.
Oh man, I remember this Sega activator for Eternal Champions. That thing, again, did not work very well.
With the power pad, though, everybody knows you use your fists.
Of course. Right. That is the way to do it.
All right.
Excellent.
Oh, the power glove. I heard about this somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
What, you didn't watch that movie, The Wizard?
Probably did.
That's where it was featured. That was like the big debut.
That's probably what it was then.
Where the villain puts on his power glove and it's like, uh-oh.
Well, I mean, I know you've been super, super busy lately. The museum opens literally tomorrow. You know, you've been working, I'm sure, around the clock. I don't even want to know what your schedule is like, but it's a video game hangover tradition. Anytime we get somebody to interview, we always ask them, you know, what games have been keeping you up, you know, late that give you that video game hangover. So, Joe, what is your video game hangover, if you've even had the time to have one?
Well, the last, 3 months or so, I haven't played anything at all. But just before that, Fallout 4.
There you go,
Fallout
another
4,
Bethesda game.
Yeah, and that, that's exactly why I gravitated towards it. I knew it was going to be great, and that Fallout 3 was so awesome. So yeah, I played Fallout. I played enough of it to beat the main game. So, and I was real happy with it. But I want to go back. No, the main game was surprisingly short. Like I really focused on it. I'm like, I'm not going to have a lot of time. Let me just see what the story is supposed to be. And of course, you can play it 100 different ways. Sure. But playing it the one way that I played it, I think I finished it in 60 hours. And it was great, and I miss it, and I want to go back to it and play it again with different levels. And there's probably DLC now that I'm missing, so I'm excited to get back to a normal schedule again, so I can play stuff like that. Yeah, no, I mean, I just think like the last little bit, walking around this place, I can imagine how much time it's taken up. But I also want to thank you personally for and your co-founders and everybody involved here in getting the Video Game Museum. Finally, it's here. I know, the amount of personal sacrifice and time and effort and everything that it must have taken. So I do want to thank you personally for that. To me, it means a lot personally. And I know that, when people start walking through the door and it's open to the public, they're going to see the passion here. I see it. So, thank you so much for what you've done, and best of luck with this place, because I have a feeling that it's going to explode, but in a good way. I hope so. Thank you so much.
All right, Joe. Thanks so much. And we're back. So, if you couldn't tell, I had an absolute blast interviewing Joe, and I had so much fun visiting the National Videogame Museum last week that, honestly, I cannot wait to go back. And the good news is, for me personally, is it's only like a 3-minute walk from here. So, I will definitely be going back and spending a lot more time at the museum. Courtney, I want to thank you for joining me last week and today as well.
You're welcome.
Do you have any final thoughts on the museum? Obviously we want to go back.
I really liked it, and I would like to go back and have more time to just really read everything.
Yes.
And play a full game of Giant Pong and try all the things that they had that were interactive. I also wanted to mention their cute little robot logo.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It was so cute. It's just cute little robot.
Oh, yeah, you mean Blip.
Just an adorable little robot, and I have a soft spot for those little guys.
You even bought a shirt, so yeah, you definitely did.
I bought a shirt because it's that cute.
Yeah, my wallet's got a softer spot too now, huh?
Yes.
No, but again, huge thank you to everybody involved with the National Video Game Museum. You can view their website at nvmusa.org. They are located in Frisco, Texas, as we alluded to. I'm going back to Dallas. But anyway.
No.
Yeah. Again, you can find more information on their website at nvmusa.org. Now, if any of you fine folks, make the right call and decide that you do want to visit this amazing museum, do it. Let me know, because I do live a couple of minutes away, and if you do end up visiting this area, let's go out for a beer sometime. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Have a good one.
Goodbye. DJ would like this wall of Cubert.
Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.